Hey YouTube, what's up? This is Stan the Man, episode number 2. I think I'm going to call this one Stomp. This is also a shout out to James True and his videos about getting connected to the land and stomping the ground 19 times to raise the giants. So anyway, I took that literal and same as other people have, and went to my office and stomped on the ground 19 times. Decided to see what was going to happen, see if there's any giants that would be raised. And then also I went to my house, my property at home, and did the same thing, stomped 19 times on the ground, good and hard, trying to raise the giants there. And this video, I want to talk a little bit about that. Didn't think much about it. I guess raising giants can be several different things, several variations of that. I think James had talked about raising his giant was doing an interview with Owen Benjamin, so that was quite a giant. And shortly after that, I got to thinking, well, that could be just about anything. So I noticed on the local headlines, and several people had told me about it, where my office is. Adjacent to that, the city and the landowner, the developer, had reached out to Tesla Motors to try to entice them to build their truck plant. And they're offering them $1 billion in incentives, which includes a discount on a little over 1,000 acres to build this plant here in the Midwest. So I thought, well, maybe stomping on the ground has raised a giant in that regard. And we're just going to see what happens there, because if that happens, obviously our property values will increase dramatically. There again, it's not all about money or benefit, but maybe we are raising a giant there. Now, I told you earlier that I had done the 19 stomps at home, and I thought I better research what was going on where I live. I was born and raised in that area and never really traveled beyond that or lived anywhere. Other than, I've traveled around the world, but lived in the same location. Called a friend of mine who's pretty much a local historian, has quite a bit of things to do in research with the Native American Indians, and ask him, okay, what's the name of this land? What did they call it? And he said, well, it's called the Cherokee Neutral Lands. And I thought that was kind of interesting. Neutral didn't seem very positive. It's kind of like, hey, how was that steak? Neutral, but I thought, well, let's see what else that means. And history tells us that there was a treaty between the Osage Indians, and I think it's the U.S. government, U.S. military, I think U.S. government at the time, around Civil War time, that this land be called a neutral land, like a no man's land. It says the land should be unoccupied by either white or red men and should be a barrier between the two races, or a neutral land. And I guess there must have been quite a bit of tension between the Osage and the U.S. government for the expansion to the west, apparently. And of course, there's quite a bit more research I need to do about that. But what I did look at, was the term Osage, to see if they had called the land anything or called their names anything, what they called themselves. And please forgive me if I'm getting some of this wrong, any of my historian friends, and particularly Native American friends, but this is a quick research. Wanted to get this out there. And Osage has a term Neokonska, which means children of the middle waters. And I think the Osage came from the Dehiga Siouan Indians, which were farther to the east, I believe, that settled most of the United States at one time. And then also, Osage, they called themselves the Wahazi, which means midwaters. And the interesting fact that I also discovered is the French, I guess Osage maybe must be a French term, and that translates into warlike. So going back to raising giants, stomping 19 times on the ground, even though I'm in the neutral lands, at one time, this warlike Osage people settled through here. And so if we're going to raise some giants, I'd like to raise some warriors. So that's what I've got for that today. And this piece of artwork you're looking at, that is actually done by my grandson. I just got that today, and I'm not sure how he did it. He's only 6 years old. So I've got an email back to see how he achieved that. But I thought it was very, very interesting. It looks like the corona, looks like the sun. Very fitting for what's going on for these times right now. And I just want to close out. Say, if you have a chance, connect back to the ground, stomp 19 times and see what kind of giants that you can raise. All right, I'm out. Thanks.